everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. So the big energy that's happening this week has already happened. We had a super full moon in Capricorn. And what makes this particular full moon really interesting is it is the last full moon in Capricorn that we are going to have in Capricorn while Pluto is in Capricorn. So Pluto's transit takes about 15 to 17 years, I believe, and it started in Capricorn in 2008, which marked the big recession for the United States. And that's because Pluto is the power purge planet. So anything that is not empowering us, and specifically empowering to the group, because Pluto is considered a group planet because it's one of the outer planets, so it affects us as a group. So if it's not empowering the group, it gets purged. And that's why we see since 2008 all of these structures, business structures, government structures, medical structures, school structures, all of these structural placements in our society are undergoing a purge type of transformation. And that's because when Pluto is in Capricorn, Capricorn represents structures, it represents business. And with Pluto being there, we're looking at a restructuring that's happening, which is, it's beautiful actually, and it's quite timely with ascension events, because the next place that Pluto goes to is Aquarius, which matches the new age, right? The new age is Aquarius. So it's helping set up the new age by collapsing what doesn't work and what is getting purged. So this is the last time we will have a matching full moon in Capricorn with Pluto in Capricorn, because in January 2024 we will be moving to Pluto in Aquarius. So right now Pluto is in retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, and that makes things more internal. So the external world isn't getting focused on as much as the internal, and that brings us back to this full moon energy in Capricorn and how it's affecting us on an individual level. So what it's doing with us on an individual level is it's assessing our work-life balance, and if it's not empowering you, then something needs to get purged. And I asked the team, what's the message you have this week? And they're telling me, focus on this work-life balance purge. The work that's happening right now for most people is not balanced. It's not in the upright, powerful position where the work you do is really moving you forward. There's something off about how most of us work. And it doesn't matter if you work for others or you work for yourself. There's boundary issues that need to get fixed and a detox that needs to be done. So right now they're not saying it's big moves. It might lead to big moves once you do a little cleanup. But right now it's the cleanup with your relationship between your work-life balance. So if you don't have healthy boundaries around your work, for example, for entrepreneurs, if you don't have set hours that these are your working hours and these are your off hours, if you're always kind of just working, and I've been super guilty of that one, then you have poor work-life balance. Likewise with someone who works for someone else, if you are having stuff happening at work that's irritating you and you're coming home and you're mulling it over, I know that's like when we kind of process, but if you don't have boundaries around, okay, this is how much time I'm giving myself to process and then I'm putting it away, then again that shows an example of a poor work-life balance. So right now we're being asked to focus in on what is our relationship with work, and specifically looking at your relationship with the money you receive from the work you do. Because the other message I've been getting is that on a collective level, the energies that are helping us right now are currently detoxing lack from our systems. And what's really interesting about a detox is that oftentimes it feels worse before it feels better. If you think about a physical detox, that should give you an idea, right? So you're doing something good for you, but you're feeling worse as all the toxins come up. So it's similar to that on an energy level. If we're if we're in a place where we're actually detoxing the lack in our system, then what's happening right now is you're going to be hyper aware or feel even more lack as it's actually being purged from you. And some of you might even be processing it for the collective. So not everyone's consciously processing lack. And for those of you who are conscious and aware or empathic, right, you could be actually taking on quite a lot of this for the collective just to help it move. And if that's the case, then again, what you need to do is become aware of when feelings of lack around work or the money you earn from work are coming up, right? And these are the main areas where it's being focused right now. That isn't to say you couldn't be feeling lack in something else, but the focal energy right now is paying attention to this house of work and the money you receive from that. So we want to notice if we're feeling feelings of lack coming up, the first thing we want to pay attention to is, am I reactive to it or am I responding to it? So reactive would be allowing the story that kicks on, that your ego shares with you, to take over. Like, let's say clients cancel, or let's say no sales are coming in. And so the story you tell yourself is, oh my God, it's all failing. I've done something wrong. My business doesn't work anymore. Maybe it's over. Maybe it's the end, right? So if those are the thoughts that are coming up, that's a story, and that's showing you that you're being reactive. Whereas if you were being responsive to the feelings of lack, you'd be like, I feel so much lack right now. What are the thoughts I'm thinking that are contributing to this feeling, right? Getting aware of the thoughts that are creating the feeling, and how can I balance myself right now? How can I focus back in on feeling balanced, whole, and even abundant? And if that's the way you're approaching it, then you know you're being responsive. So we're going to be tested through this period to check in. Are you still reactive? Are you still in your ego, still telling stories? Or are you moving into responsiveness, where you're becoming aware that your beliefs are what creates your experience? And if that's the case, then you're working on altering those thoughts and beliefs rather than buying into them. And as you start making the difference, you might notice that sometimes you're reactive because it really triggers you, and other times you're responsive. And by doing small detoxes, like setting firm boundaries around time between this is when I work, or this is when I process work, and this is my life, and I'm going to give myself this much time to process, and then when I'll process on my commute, and as I get home, I leave it there, and I let myself relax, would be an example of healthy boundaries. Or I work between this hour and this hour, and I know that anyone who responds to me or reaches out after those hours, they know that I will be getting back to them as soon as possible during my business hours. Therefore, having nice, healthy boundaries between work and life. So that's the focus that we're being asked to pay attention to right now. And as we do, you might find that it's right there at the forefront of your consciousness, which means you're in perfect alignment with the energy going on right now. And just practice creating those beautiful, healthy boundaries to help you maintain a work-life balance. And with that, let's do this week's karma cards. All right, so if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel what is the most resonant thing you need this week. Are you looking for action related guidance, or how things turn out? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for July 5th through July 12th. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Mercury, which makes sense because we're working on things with belief and the mind, in the sign of Virgo, which is about organizing, and boundaries definitely comes up under Virgo. in the 5th house, which is the fun house. So you can see, so Virgo also represents work. So we have work, play, and the mind right here. So you can see even the cards are like, yeah, this is the focus right now. So for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to communicate the serving of others with the trust of a child. This is really interesting. So the communicate is coming up as the stories that we tell about the serving of others with the trust of a child. The trust of a child is the open heart, right? The heart is completely open. And so the stories that you're telling yourself about the serving of others or work with an open heart. If you were to retell the stories that you have, especially stories about work-life balance or lack, which is one of the things that's getting detoxed, and you were to retell it with the theme of my heart is open, and so therefore whatever I'm experiencing is actually for my highest good. That might be how you would tell the story. So partly what they're saying here is it's time to retell the stories about work. We need to check our stories. For example, if your story is, it's really hard to get this going, or I don't have enough, I don't know enough, I'm not enough yet around your work, that's the story to pay attention to. Now imagine rewriting it with an open heart. That means I trust it, I feel expansive, I feel open. How would I rewrite that story? That's one of the things that we need to focus on the spiritual level, is rewriting these beliefs we have around work so that we can experience work differently. Mental action at this time. Analyze the details of romance and making art. So it's interesting because the 5th house is the fun house, and interest also connected to the heart itself. And in the body, one of the most important organs, in fact, the organ that is developed first when we are a fetus, right, is the heart. And then everything else is dependent on it. Even, the brain, it's like if you don't have a beating heart, your brain doesn't work. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how smart you are. If your heart's not beating, nothing's working, right? So it's the core. It's literally, for the French word for heart is core. It is the core of what we are, and it's connected to pleasure, fun, and joy. Those are heart themes. Open heart, having courage, taking risks are also heart themes. And yet notice how most of us respond to themes of the open heart. Like playtime, you can play later. All of these other things get put on the back burner. Taking risks is for chumps, or we have collectively certain thoughts about the heart, and they're usually putting the heart down. They're usually talking about a sort of childishness, which is true, but not in the way that it's often said, right? Childish meaning immature, whereas childlike is what the heart is, because it's also connected to your inner child as well. It's where the inner child lives. And so therefore, to have the open heart and connect with source, you must be like a child. So there's childlike energy in there, but it's not an immaturity like it often gets lambasted societally, right? We sort of look down on it and think of it as immature, lacking grounding or seriousness, and yet it's the core. It's literally the core of who we are, and we need that beating heart. So physically we need the beating heart, and spiritually you need that heart. When your heart's not in it, right? We have that saying, if your heart's not in it, nothing happens. And yet we have outweighed the heart with the work portion. And so it's time to analyze your thinking about what it means to be heart-led, or have the open heart, or following your heart. Analyze that. Is that enough for you? Do you believe it? You might want it, but do you trust it? All of these things need to be considered now, because it's part of the story you're telling yourself, right? That maybe other people can follow their heart, but not me, or I'm not that foolish. I would never just risk things. Like what kind of immature action is that? You want to pay attention to your feelings about the themes of the heart, which again are play, romance, risk, courage, right? Being open, trusting. How do you feel about these topics? And it might help to actually journal it, write it down, analyze it, like it's saying, get into the details, figure out how do you feel about it. You might be like, that sounds good, but on paper, it sounds good on paper, but in practice, it's not practical. You want to find out your relationship to these themes, because it's going to help you see why you're out of balance. And if you're experiencing these themes of like, it's immature and childish, then you know that you've overemphasized one part of your life and not the other. So it's not meant to overtake, but it's not meant to be so downplayed. And if you find that life is lacking, dry, depressing, sad, always disappointing, then you know that the heart has been disregarded too much, and it's time to address those thoughts. Physical action at this time. Let your mind tell you how to do what you must do, and do it dramatically. Right, so this is so funny because we got the mind in here. We got two very analytical cards with Mercury, which actually rules Virgo. So these two very analytical up here cards, and then the heart, right? The heart is down here. So mind and heart in balance. You need to use the analysis part of your mind to determine what is going on. Why is this out of balance? Why is it that why do I feel a lack here? Or why do I feel stressed here? Or why am I so work heavy and life keeps getting put on hold? I need to analyze that, right? That's the first part. The do it dramatically is like, have the courage to actually go in there. Like this is a thinking contemplation, and this is an action, right? The heart's like, let's do this. Let's bust it open and really take a look, because this is the time period where you're going to feel it being tested. And if you know that this is a test, not a punishment, which it definitely isn't, but if you're not aware that it's a test, it could be misinterpreted as a period of punishment, because it's going to get a little hairy, kooky in energy as we go deeper into July. And as we get there, I'll tell you all about it. We've got this week right now, we just had the big energy of the supermoon. So we get a little calm period, and then the next week is going to be kind of calm too, but towards the end of July, stuff starts cooking and planets start moving in interesting ways, and it's going to intensify. So my point is that while you have the time, if you will, to actually sit and consider what creates these feelings of lack, what creates a feeling of being out of balance, and go for it, like go into it, then you're going to move through these tests with relative ease. So when your feelings of lack get triggered, you'll be able to go, okay, I feel lack, but what are the thoughts behind, what am I believing about this situation? What am I telling myself this means? Even just that work right there, so powerful. It's going to help you sail through a period that other people might find incredibly intense. And so your heart wants you to know, just do it, right? Let's do the work so that we can adjust and change with the tide of energy that's happening right now. We're going to look at outcomes for Mercury in Virgo in the 5th house, or the fun house, the house of the heart. And the spiritual outcome at this time is an awareness of methods for the healing power of the power of love. Right? So that's just what we were talking about. You're going to know how to move through this, and with the open heart, with the courage and the willingness to take the risk to look at what do I believe? Because whatever I'm believing, I am going to create. Remember, we're always working to prove ourselves right. We're actually not, many times we're not working to discover the truth. We're actually working to prove what we believe is true. So we're looking for evidence that supports our current belief. We're not usually looking to change our belief. So this is an opportunity to adjust and make some changes to those beliefs in this very specific area dealing with your work-life balance and your feelings about the money you earn from the work that you do, and the feelings of lack or not lack that might be associated with it. Mental outcomes at this time: many thoughts about or from the analyzing of investments, gambles, and other games. So remember, when the heart is open, we have the courage to take risks, and changing your belief system, even if you're changing it for the better, does feel like a risk. It feels risky because you're used to the story that you tell yourself. You have to be more invested in moving past that than trying to find proof that something else exists. Because again, I'll repeat again, we do not work to change our beliefs, we work to affirm our beliefs. So we've got to be in a place of, I have to know what I believe. Whether I like it or not, I need to know my beliefs about it. If I believe something like work is hard and then you die, or you have to work hard, then you die, then I need to go, do I like that? Is that really the motto that I want my entire life built around? And if not, then you have to, focus on, what do I need to do to change it? And that's going to feel like a risk. It's going to feel like a gamble, because all your analytical brain knows is what you've believed so far. And it's worked really hard to prove those beliefs to be true. So not only are you asking yourself to change, but you're asking yourself to let go of what you think is the truth, which to your ego is a type of death, and your ego will fight and say, no, because if you go there, what happens, what's going to happen to you? You're going to fail, you're going to fall apart, you're going to lose things, right? And so this is even though fundamentally it's just a shift, to the ego, it is a type of death, because the ego has control of you with your stories and your beliefs. And if your beliefs are sort of working against you and keep you sort of in your monkey mind, then the ego is sort of running your show, and it's not ready to give that up. So it's going to present a fight. It's going to make it feel risky. It's going to tell you lots of stories about how foolish that would be. And instead, you want to choose to lean into the risk and say, but maybe everything changes for the better. And maybe things that felt hard before start to feel like they're flowing and unblocked and easier. And isn't it worth trying this out to see if that could be the truth? Physical outcome at this time: many words resulting from the perfectionism of your creations. So you're going to start to see it, right? You're going to start to see that the words you think, which are your thoughts and beliefs, and the words you speak are the frequency building blocks that you're using to create your life. And so what it's letting you know is that there's sort of a debate, I get, that they're saying is going to happen here. Because again, we've got mind versus heart in this reading. And all it's saying is, like, there's going to be kind of what I just explained. The ego's going to take its podium, and your heart's going to take its podium, and it's going to be a debate about whether or not how I think about things or perceive things when it comes to work and the money I earn from work and lack and healthy boundaries and a work-life balance. On one hand, there's going to be a fight in the mind to preserve the way of life that you have, no matter how miserable it could be making you. And on the other hand is really a breath of fresh air and a completely new alternative for you to live something that feels much better. But it's something that, again, the ego, the left hemisphere of the brain, that area, especially if you're coming from your analytical place, which you could very well be, it cannot conceptualize abstract thinking. And what I mean by that is, if you're picturing a future where things are better or easier because you're changing your belief system, the analytical side of your brain cannot comprehend that. It sees it as malarkey. It's a fantasy. There's no stock in that. Don't go there, because there's nothing concrete or solid that I can analyze to prove that that's true. So therefore that's a risk, and it might be foolish, and that would be coming from the analytical side. In order to conceptualize a new perspective, and a perspective that could really open you up energetically, make you more magnetic, you're going to have to go into the right hemisphere, which will activate the heart, and then you'll have access to true discernment of your intuition, and you'll be able to feel what the aligned actions are. But you can't be connecting with that and be hyper analytical. At some point we learn how to balance these two, and in truth we need to learn how to be in our creative place to move forward, and then move to the analytical side to gather proof for the things that we're creating, and do it consciously. That's what we're moving towards. Right now, what we're going to have to notice is, where am I living when it comes to this topic? Am I analyzing? Am I looking for proof? Am I deciding that things can't move because I have no proof of it? Okay, then I'm in my analytical left hemisphere. If I'm able to visualize what it would look like if I shifted, I'm in my right hemisphere, my creative hemisphere. And all of these things are going on right now. So it's a lot in the mind, but the heart is saying, I'm here, I'm ready, put me in, coach. I've got some ideas I think you're really gonna like. And it's kind of starting the symbiosis that we need between heart and mind. Still more in the mind right now though, but by awakening and opening the heart and looking at the themes of the heart, we're going to make that a stronger player, or bring it back into balance, which will also help with the work-life balance. So with that, I'm sending you so much love. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you soon. Mwah.